Welcome everyone. I know there's no thumbnail, no intro, but guys, sorry. I've been so busy, and that's why I've also skipped the last few this weekend's belt. So I didn't have time to load the thumbnail into my OBS. But like finally after so many weeks, we are here and we can actually take a look at 26 new Svelte release and 10 new Svelte Kit release. So let's jump right into it. Also because like we have a bunch to talk, and I need to go in 1 hour. I promise. I should have probably also linked something on Discord. Let me do it. Sorry. Let me do it very quickly. I am so unorganized right now. I'm sorry. So let me do ping events. Only on YouTube. Disorganized. All right, I've pinged on Discord so that people should be able to see me. So, all right, we can start. Sorry, guys. So. Let's start with Svelte Changelog, and let's see if we have anything new. Well, I mean, we definitely have something new because it's been a while. So let's start from October 24, almost 1 month ago. Taking into account static blocks when determining transition locality. So as you may know, like the transitions have, like they can be local or global, and the issue was probably the fact that we can actually take a look. I know that Antoine is gonna hate me because I continue opening GitHub, but yeah. So like this was, well, I mean, this is now fixed, but yeah, okay. Transition slide. There was probably some issue with, okay, let's go ahead. Okay, coordinate amount of snippets with await expression. So recently there have been a lot of work going on to fix a bunch of sorry, I was checking if we are actually live. There was a lot of fixes like around the await, like the async stuff. Now, obviously, keep in mind that like async, it is experimental, and that's why like we are still figuring out. And huge shout out to everybody out there actually trying the feature, because obviously there are a lot of edge cases. Like it's a very complex piece of software, and there are a lot of edge cases. And like you guys are very good at finding them so that we can fix them. Better optimization of await expression. So I think this should be from Ocean. Let me do this. So basically, if you have something like this, today we generate the template effect, blah blah blah. We only need this because the inner await is inside a function boundary. Okay, so like if you are awaiting and then awaiting, there is no reason to await this thing here. Like this, it's already awaited by the thing outside, basically. And so like it's just like a matter of having less code. Yeah. Okay, so Antoine, if you're watching, this is probably one of the reasons why I never opened it like this. Like, I think I was used to losing track, but it's fine. Flush pending changes after rendering failed snippet. So once you, if you were rendering the failed snippet of a boundary, changes were not flushed, which means that either like outside it got stale, or it was not able to like re-change stuff after the failed snippet was rendered. Let me also push this here, sorry. All right, so let's see. So there is a new experiment. Oh, wow, we didn't actually had a this week is Svelte before fork. That's a way to go. That's a long time ago. But okay, let's talk about fork. So fork is a brand new API that basically allow SvelteKit to do preloading. So if we open the Svelte playground, we can see what's going on with fork. So let's say that I have my count here. So let me remove all of these. Now with fork, basically what you can do is that you can like change some status, and when you change some status, it's actually executing all the stuff that will change that status. So let's say that we have a component, and inside this component we have something, and then we have I don't know, await promise.resolve I don't know, 1 2 3, right? Or even let's do this. We can do const is equal to assign props like this, and we have number like this. And so what we want is, let's say that we want to, like, we are awaiting something, and let's actually do as low. So we can do new promise r set timeout resolve after 3 seconds, for example, and we resolve nums time 2. So this is fine. We can do like double is equal to this, and let's print double like this. So this is absolutely fine, right? Because the point is, when I import component from component.svelte, I render it, passing in num, which is equal to count. Yeah, I don't know if this, okay, we will see. I don't know if it's the right example for forking. But the point is, as you can see, no, that's probably, okay, I need to wrap it in a key. That's the way to go to show you this. So basically I have this component, right? And every time I click on count, you can see that it takes 3 seconds to load, because every time the component needs to mount, the promise restart, and then it resolve, and after it resolve, you can actually show the value, right? So this is fine, probably. But now imagine that, like, instead of just being a promise that I can remove, this is, I don't know, a fetch call to something. Now, something that SvelteKit does normally, that already did with load function, is that when you hover over a link, like, SvelteKit knows that if you are hovering over a link, you probably will click it. There is a slight chance that you will click it. And so today, in today's world, SvelteKit, what it does is that when you hover over a link, it starts running the load function. It does a fetch call to get the load function. And so what this means is that when you then click, the load function has already started, and it's much quicker to do stuff like that. So what is the issue with this? The issue is that if you instead have something inside a component, then you can't preload this stuff, right? Like there's no a single endpoint to do that. Like you will need to mount the component, but where do you mount it? Like how do you mount it? And that's where fork comes into place. Because with fork, what you can do is that you can say, okay, whatever I do, like whenever I do some change, whatever change I do inside fork, what am I doing? Whatever change I do inside fork, please like apply it, but don't mount it to the DOM, don't do anything, basically just apply and store the result of the fork. And so let's actually see here, let's say that I do this, and instead of running count like this, I can do let forked like this, and then what I can do, I can say instead of doing count plus plus, I can do forked is equal fork, and then I pass a function, and inside this function I actually do count plus plus. Now what happens here is that if I click here, so let's say that I do fork, when I click on fork, nothing is gonna happen. So if I click on fork, you see nothing is happening. But what is happening in reality is that there is a separate branch, a separate like batch, it's called, that basically apply this change, and in that part of the memory, this component is actually rerun, and it stay there. Like there is not like we don't do anything with it. And the moment you change this is when you do commit. So you can do commit, and then here I can say fork.commit. And maybe before this I should also do, just to be sure, I can do fork.discard. So what this does is that basically when I fork something, now this component has been run and executed. The await is already resolved by this time because more than 3 seconds passed. And so now I can click here and it's fine. But what I can do also is commit. So if I commit, now you can see that then only when I commit, the state actually changes. So only when I commit, basically we mount the DOM and the state actually updates. And this is pretty powerful because as you can see, the moment I commit, I immediately get something out. Oh, like I don't need to wait the 2 seconds. Like if I click now, I have to wait 3 seconds. But if I fork and then I wait 3 seconds because maybe I'm hovering over the link and I don't know if I would click it, and then I commit, the change is immediate. And this is pretty powerful because this is basically allow SvelteKit to preload the values even if they are fetched inside a component. And that's pretty sweet. And obviously, like, you don't have to do this, but like you can do the same thing that basically SvelteKit does, and you can do on mouse enter. And so like on mouse enter, you can do the fork. So you can do this. So you can say that when the mouse enter is doing this, and when you click on the mouse, you commit. And so when you do stuff like this, basically, and then you can also do forked is equal to null, just for good measure. And so when you do stuff like this, what happens is that you don't even need now the thing, and you can basically just say, okay, I wait 3 seconds, then I hover over this, I wait a bit, should I click it? Yeah, I can click it, and then it's immediate. So it's basically a way to preload a state change, which is pretty nice. And this was released at this point almost 1 month ago. Always allowed set context before first awaiting component. So there was probably a bug about invoking set context before the first await, which is fine. Like you cannot use set context after the first await, but you can do it always before the first await. Less confusing name for inspect errors. So before, I don't know if you know about inspect traces, but before, if you are doing $n effect, $inspect trace, and then do count, you can see that let me do, okay. So you can see that you have this created at and trace that, and this is basically like you get a stack trace of all the, like where the state was created and where it was traced. And if you update it, you even get the updated at. So you can literally see where, like in the up.button.click, where it's being updated. And if you have stack trace on, you even literally see in the Svelte code where this lives. Now, before, these were called created at error and traced at error and updated at error. And the reason is that for sometimes Firefox was not showing the stack trace, or it was not applying the source maps if they were available. But now we figure out that instead they probably fixed some bug in Firefox, and so now we can have less confusing names. Ignore fork discard after commit. So like, as you can see, like after you commit, you can also discard a fork. And before it was erroring out, but now since it is committed, discard can just be a no, and it's fine. Better message for global variable assignment. This was just a small error, I would say, in the parser, if I'm not mistaken. I actually did this PR, but it's too many times ago. But basically the point is, like, if you were trying to assign it to a global variable in a module, it was just erroring out saying this thing, like it was a very unhelpful message. And the reason was that like the parser was failing there. Tweak memoizer logic. So like the memoizer is something that basically allows you to when you write a function call, for example, inside the template, we want to memoize that so that it doesn't rerun every time there is a template effect. And we have this memoizer class that is made specifically so that we can quickly convert like expression that contains call into a derived. Handles Svelte head rendered asynchronously. So Svelte head has a separate render process, basically, as a separate render process, because like if you have a Svelte head with a title in an upper component and a Svelte head with a title in a lower component, the second one should win. So like basically it has a separate branch where you can actually like it will follow the Svelte head path separately. Don't restore batch in a wait. This is probably, so again, the concept of a batch is that when there are multiple parallel changes that are happening, either because it's asynchronous or because you are forking, there is a new branch, a new batch every time, and the batch also contains the values of that specific change. So like when you change something, instead of literally applying that change to the signal itself, it will store it in the batch and then apply it only when the batch resolves. This is another very cool thing that was included in a Svelte 5.43.0, which is out of order rendering. What this means is that, so this was 5.43, right? So if we've moved back to 5.42 version, the point is the moment you await something in the script tag, so let's say that I do, I don't know, derived, like, I mean, double is equal to $ derived, await, new promise, resolve, set, timeout, resolve, 1000, count, time 2, right? So if you await something here, let me think of a way to demonstrate this. So let's say that okay, so this is, let's say that I have this component here, and this component is using like it's accepting a prop, props, which is count, and it's just rendering. Actually, let's do name, and it's just rendering name like this after an HR. So now the point is, if I am rendering this component, import component from component, when I do component name, this technically doesn't need to wait for this await, right? Because like it only really needs to wait for this await if it's depending on double, but this is not depending on double. And so as you can see, like if I do is still waiting for this await because it was in the script. Now watch what happens when I do 43. It is still waiting, I think. I don't know if this is the right example, but the point is, right now, instead of immediately, it should not wait though. Because the point is that instead of waiting for this derived, like if you take a look at the output code, you can see that before, this double was literally doing await, save, blah, 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 async derived, async, await, save, new promise, set timeout, blah, 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 blah. So the code execution would literally go here, here, then it goes here, and it waits for the promise. If you switch to 43 instead, you can see that we are not awaiting anything here, and we should be only awaiting when the, like, in the template itself. So like if I try to use double, then the code will actually do, like, will await on promises at 0. So like inside this template effect is actually awaiting on this template 0. However, it is weird that I wonder if that's okay. Probably that is not rendering. Okay, so the thing that I should probably do is, let's say that I console.log name here, and if I switch back to 42, you can see that the log appears once the component mount, or like literally after 1 second. But if I switch to 43, the log happens immediately. Now, it is mounted to the DOM after the same period, but the nice thing about this is that if this component has an await inside, it can start right away. So the right way to demonstrate it is probably doing something like this. So if I do this and I wait const double is equal this, and this can be, I don't know, 1 times 2, like this will wait 2 seconds, for example, and then I log double. So as you can see, after 2 seconds here, it's like if I refresh, like 1, 2, and bot renders. If I switch back to 42, this will take 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And the reason why it takes 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, even more, is that because like this component is not even like reached before this await execute, which means that basically there is a waterfall of this to this. But with this new out of order rendering thing, which is on 43, instead what happens is that we are not literally waiting on double. We are just like starting the promise and then we just wait for it when it happens, when you are reading it. But in the meantime, it can actually already execute the component, which is solving some stuff. Settle batch after DOM updates. So this is like after a DOM update, it needs to settle it. So like it's saying, okay, now the DOM updates are happened, and so now I can settle the batch. I can settle the batch to complete the to mark the batch as completed. Thanks. Transform $sign bindable after await expression. So it was not properly transformed, which meant that if you had a bindable after an await, it was not working properly. Treat each blocks with a sync dependency as uncontrolled. So if you have any async dependency inside an each block, now it is considered uncontrolled. And I suppose that the reason is that like you cannot be, like if you had something like this, is controlled optimization is being incorrectly applied. Okay. That's hard stuff. Ensure fork always access correct values. I think I did this PR, but basically, like there was a bunch of bugs with fork. That was mostly around the fact that like when you have a fork, you are technically changing some bugs, like you're technically changing some values, especially when it comes to derives. But those values are not technically changing. So like they are changing, but they're not changing in reality, like visually. And so when you run them again, they have the same value and they are not considered as new values. And so like we had to do a bunch of stuff to fix it. Change title only after any pending work has completed. Looks good because otherwise it will change immediately. Preserve symbols when creating derived REST properties. Okay, so like if you have some symbol, it was getting getting removed from the REST properties of a derived when you are destructuring, and now is actually preserved. Simplify connection disconnection logic. So this is basically these two things are part of an effort which I think has been, I don't know, but it's part of an effort where basically there was this concept of an unknown derived, which was one of the most complex part of the code base, and it was like heavily simplified after this. Ensure async static props attributes are awaited. Okay. Wait on dependency of async bindings. So when you are binding to something and you have some async dependency, you need to wait for them. Await dependencies of style directive is very similar. So like if you are using a wait inside style, you actually need to wait before applying the style. Don't deactivate other batches. So like it was happening that when you were deactivating one batch, it was also deactivating the other ones. I need to go a bit faster because we don't have much time. So probably defer document title until async work is complete. That's like it was probably not fixed at this point. And sure, deferred effect can be rescheduled later on. So this is also something like a deferred effect is an effect that basically it is deferred until the actual work settled. So like when you are doing a wait of something, effect can be deferred. But there was a problem where basically some effect were not rerun later on because they were marked as executed already, even though they were deferred. Take blockers of component into account. So blockers, this is what I was talking about when I was talking about the out of order rendering. So as you can see, this that you can see here, it's a blocker. So like this is basically saying, okay, this template effect, this set text, has a blocker on promises at 0, which is the first promise in this array here. So it's a blocker in the sense that you need to await that promise now before executing this template effect, which is something that we do under template effect, and the components were not taken into account. Fix each block losing reactivity when items removed while promise pending. So like if you were removing some item while a promise was pending, each block altogether was losing reactivity, and now it is not. Correctly handle function when determining async blockers, same thing. Keep derives reactive after their original parent effect was destroyed. Ensure eager effects don't break reaction chain. So eager effects are basically the inspect effect, stuff that needs to be executed immediately. I think also pre-effect is an eager effect. Ensure async const in boundary hydrates correctly. So this was more, I think, I can't remember if I fixed it. Let me see. I think I fixed it, right? No, that's not me. Okay, so it was a different thing. Okay, so take blockers into account when creating await blocks. Parallelize async const in the template. Oh, that's pretty nice. So like the fact that const like can be parallelized in the template, because in the template like it's a bit more like they can be executed one after the other, and they shouldn't have a dependency one after the other. And actually, I think Svelte already reorganized them to be in topological order. Avoid other branches running with queued root effect of the main branch. Don't use tracing over eager during dev. So we were tracing stuff, and this was causing a bit of a performance issue if you had a lot of derives, for example. And the reason was that we were just always tracing, right, regardless. But since we received some like, hey, this is phrasing my page, we like did it more lazily, like only when you're actually accessing. Don't cancel transition of already outgoing elements. Okay. Maintain correct linked list of effect when updating each blocks. So there was a bunch of work around each blocks, and I think we will probably see, I can't remember if it was before or after, but at one point they were literally overhauled. Like they were, there is now a class that manage each effect, because the code for the each effect for the each block were a bit rough, to be fair. Don't set derived values during time travel. This was the one that I was I fixed this, and I was talking before. Like the value of a derived should not be set when you are in a fork or when you are time traveling. But there is also like something later on that it's similar to this. Yes, store fork derived values. Correctly migrate named self-closing slot. So like if you had, we are still working on the migration script, by the way, and mostly because I was using it and I found a couple of bugs. Correctly migrate named self-closing slot. So like if you were using a slot on a self-closing tag, it was like creating invalid Svelte code. Error at compile time instead of at runtime on a wait expression inside binding, transition, animation, and attachment. So like these were causing a runtime error, and now we actually like check for that at compile time. Take async blockers into account for binding, transition, animation, and attachment. Don't execute attachment and attribute effect eagerly. So like if you are executing an attachment or an attribute effect, they should not execute them eagerly when you are time traveling or when you are running in a batch. Lift flush sync cannot be called in effect restriction. So this was added, I think it was added before, like when the await branch was merged. And the reason was that it was already complex enough to also figure out how to make it work properly. And now apparently we already fixed it. If I remember correctly, like this is literally just removing the error. Yeah, exactly. Like this was just removing the error. Like there was no extra work to be done, and it was just like, yeah. So like there was this this thing, and it was just simply removed. This is also super cool. Hydratable API. So Hydratable API is a new feature that was released recently, 3 days ago, and it basically allows you to write. Let me see if I can probably show it to you. So let me open this and let me do cd stuff, where I get all my stuff. Come on, clear. Okay. I can also showcase the brand new, if you use Raycast, CLI, compose CLI command, this will compose a CLI command for you. So like if you want to quickly create an SV command, you can do it like this. So I want to create a new one, hydratable, this week in Svelte. I want to minimal TypeScript. I want to use PMPM. I don't need any add-on, I think. Yeah, I think it's fine. Copy command. And now I can just do this, and it will work. And yeah, I don't want anything. And cd hydratable this week in Svelte. So I want to show you code. So, what is hydratable? Well, hydratable is basically a way it will be used by the remote functions, and it's basically a way directly in Svelte to, what is this? /script. It's a way to do something very interesting directly in Svelte. I actually built a library to do stuff like this by myself, because sometimes you do want something that is generated on the server to be literally the same value on the client. And so, for example, let's say that I do const date is equal a new date, right? And let's also say that I do, so let me do, I should probably zoom in a lot. Sorry, guys. Let's say that I go into my Svelte config and I enable compiler option, experimental, async, true. So we can now use async. So let's say that I create a new date, and then let's say that I do await new promise. Yeah, I just waited for 2 seconds, and then I do date dot to isostring, right? So if I do this and I open my terminal and I do maybe pmpm dev, you can see, and I should probably, sorry for the, let me do this, style, global body, I want to add a font, and I want to add background color. I mean, let's do 111, text color, it's just color. EEE, let's save. So we can see that I have this date here. And now what happens? Like if I do this, yeah, it's not, yeah, you can see, I think, maybe, I don't know. Let's say if I disable JavaScript, like, as you can see, I mean, no, you cannot see, enable JavaScript. So if I save, you can see that the value updates, like, after a while, like there is 2 passes of, let me do actually font size 10 rem, I don't care. And I think like it feels too few milliseconds, but it is fine. So as you can see, like it is updating twice, like once and then after the other, once and then after the other. And the reason for this is because like the server-side rendered value of, oh, you know why? This is the out-of-order rendering that I was doing. So like, let's say that I do const value is equal to this, and we resolve this to date.toIsoString. So it was the reason why it was not working. I think it is because of the out-of-order rendering. So like if I save, we should be able to, like after 2 seconds, it should change. Maybe no? Is it changing? Yeah, it is changing after 2 seconds. And the reason for this is because basically this code is actually executed once again. So like we do new date and we have a new date. So how to solve this problem? Well, pretty easy now, because you can now do import from Svelte, and we can import Hydratable, and now we can say that this is Hydratable new date, like this. And we do need to provide a globally unique string. So if you are using this in a library, make sure to prefix it with the key of your library so that like it can be unique. If you're using this in your application, I don't know, figure out a way to make the key unique in your whole application. But now that I have this, I can do stuff like my date. And once I do this, what happens is that if I save and if I refresh the page, you can see that now the value is not changing. So like this is literally the value that is being generated. That is generating. Oh, I actually saw a question. Sorry, I didn't say it before. Could you quickly describe what time traveling is in this context? I don't think this is the context that you're talking about. So if you can specify which context, I will gladly try to explain it. So let's going back to this. You can see that now when I refresh the page, it takes 2 seconds to load, but then it doesn't change after another 2 seconds. So like this is literally the value that is being generated on the server, and it's being hydrated on the client, which is pretty cool. It's something that sometimes you do need, and you will need, like we will probably use this inside SvelteKit to use it for with remote functions. Await blockers before initializing const. Link off-screen item. Okay, so when I was going over the changelog and I said some changes were useful, relevant when time traveling. So time traveling is basically forking, but not only forking. Basically, the idea of time traveling inside Svelte is that you make a change to some variable, and that change propagates to the whole application, but you can revert that change. So like we basically do this when there is a wait, like when there is async work going on. So like when you do some changes to some variable, we don't want to apply that change immediately. What we want to do is we want to apply the change, figuring out what is changing, what needs to be awaited and what needs to be refetched, for example, and then we revert it back. And then when the await finish, we then apply the change once again. So we are time traveling once back and forth. And the same is true for forking, because basically when you fork something, you fork and you are moving forward in time in like for what is concerned, like for what state is concerned. And then you are moving back in time, and then when you commit the fork, you are moving forward again in time. So that is what time traveling is about. And Richard has also created the first time machine. And I fully expect him to do it sooner or later. Okay, so let's see. Generate correct code for simple destructuring. So this was also, there was a problem destructuring. Actually, there is also another problem here that is being fixed yesterday, basically. Basically, like we were destructuring, when you were destructuring from a derived, and you were using a wait before the derived inside the run function, it was not correctly generating the code, and so it was creating some unrunnable code. This is also another very cool minor for Svelte 5.45.0. I actually already have. I built something just for myself, just to test it out. But basically, like this will not be very useful for most people, but it is very useful if you are building some Vite plugin or some like Svelte preprocessor, because as of today, you could take a string, convert it into a JavaScript, a Svelte AST, but then you would have no way to convert it back into a component. And this is, for example, why the migration script is actually just using the AST to drive a string change inside your component when we do the Svelte 5 migration. But now we actually have a print function directly from Svelte, which is pretty cool, because basically you can take your code like this, you can convert it into an IST like this, and then if you want, you can do some changes to the code directly modifying the AST. So in this case, what I'm doing is something super silly, but I'm basically, you can see that I like take the code, I parse it, and then I modify the AST. So if you are a little familiar with AST changes, this is basically the same thing that the Svelte compiler does. Like it takes your string, it parses it, and then takes the Svelte component and it's modifying it to generate this code. But in this case, I'm modifying the AST just to change some stuff, and then I'm printing this modify AST into a Svelte component. So as you can see, this is the input code, and the change that I'm doing, again, is super silly. I'm just changing the name of every identifier to Svelte and the every literal to 42. So by doing this, basically you can see that the code is let count $state1 gets converted to let svelte 42, because every single identifier is changed into Svelte and every single literal is changed into 42. And this also applies to below, like you can see that count becomes Svelte and count becomes Svelte. And I think even if I did something like this, count, yeah, it's still converted into count is equal to Svelte, as you can see. So this is pretty nice if you're building a Vite plugin, because now you can basically, what you can do is that you can take the input code and then do changes directly into the AST, which is not something that you could do before. I mean, there was a Svelte to AST, AST to Svelte package, but it was not super working. I mean, no, it was actually super working, sorry. It was working. It's just that like it's better if it is official. Link off-screen items and last effect in each block correctly. So the off-screen items are the ones that are basically the ones that, as I've said, with forking, we are mounting that component into an off-screen item. So something, a DOM element, which is off-screen, like is not actually working and is not actually there. And then mounting into the component. But we need to keep track of each blocks. So like, basically, it's a bit of a weird one, but basically like in effect, every effect keep tracks of which part of the DOM is responsible for. And so basically with each block, this was not happening correctly. So like when you mounted something off screen and then mounted it on each block, it was not correctly updating the last effect property, which led to some other issue. Fix array destructuring after await. This was an issue that came up after this thing, basically actually after the out of order stuff. It was the same bug as this one, basically the same as this one. Throw on invalid @tags. This is something that it's so funny. I discovered it by chance last time. So if you have this playground in 5.45.1, Svelte was not erroring on invalid @. So like if you had @const @debug @html @render is fine, but then I could say like @this week in Svelte, and it was technically working, but not really working. So yeah, now it is fixed. Okay, I would say, considering that I have to leave in 6 minutes and we cannot in like for sure also fix the 10 Svelte kit release, we can probably just look at them the next time so that we will have a bit more time. And sorry for like being absent so long, but I was pretty busy. I actually am still pretty busy, so like I hope that I can do it the next time. But thank you for coming. Sorry for being this unprepared today. And I'll see you guys next week, I'd say. Bye.